I started photography about 10 years ago, and I started even before I had my own camera. I had a friend from Berlin, and she had a really old camera which she borrowed from her grandfather, and I was absolutely instantly when I saw this camera, I was hooked, and I wanted to know how it works. And I bought myself a black and white film, and then I took some photos. I got my first film that I developed or that I shot and set up in my bathroom in the flat I was living. I set up a dark room, and for me it was a magic thing to see my photos I've taken to be developed and printed. And there was one really beautiful picture I took of this friend that I still see as like my first picture I was proud of. It was a magic moment of her standing in a river in Berlin, next to a river in Berlin, and it captured a really youthful, spiritual moment of her, and the way I saw her and the way I felt at the moment. And for me, then onwards, later I saw I needed to get my own camera. This is something I want to pursue. Capturing time, capturing moment, capturing my feelings as well. And a few months later I had the money together to buy my first proper SLR camera, and since then I see myself as a photographer. I took my camera wherever I went. I had my little camera bag, and then walked around the streets in Berlin and took photos of people, of people playing in parks or lying in parks, or just people on the street. And I took photos of everything I found interesting. There could be just like bullet holes in a wall somewhere in one of the many kind of deprived buildings in Berlin that still have the bullet hole from the Second World War. Or I took photos of people being happy, like couples lying happy in the sun, or children playing with their parents. I was very much a human or man photographer, you know, like trying to capture street life, street documentary. My life, what photography for me is something that changes and evolves with myself. For, as I said, like years back, I was taking loads of pictures of people on the street. Now I'm doing something completely different. For me, music was always a very important part of my life, especially something when I started to go out clubbing in Berlin. Berlin had, at the time when I started going out, a very off-the-wall night clubbing scene. There were many places standing empty, and these places have been turned into nightclubs, and I found it always very inspiring. I took one of the most natural things I was doing. I took my camera and I took photos that inspire me, that I find interesting. That's people that do music, that give me this great kind of buzz, this kind of energy. And whenever I go to a gig, or went to a gig, there was always something like, "Ooh, I wish I had my camera with me, you know? Wow, what a moment, you know? It's amazing. Someone jumps in the air with his guitar, smashes it, throws over a speaker box, or just shouts and screams into the microphone, spit is everywhere, and like screaming teenagers," and this kind of moment. And it's for me like, coming from that kind of people-orientated photography on the streets, capturing that moment, that was something like, you know, that's it. Music and photography, wow. That really is like, and it's something that I find, even I'm doing it now for about 5 years. I'm doing it mostly for unknown bands, sometimes bigger bands as well. It's something I get never tired of. One day I took a photo of a car park building up in Manchester, and I took it from like underneath in a really square angle. And a couple of days later, when I saw that on my screen, that picture, I thought like, that is quite an interesting perspective. And for some reason, I thought like, what happens if I mirror that picture on my Photoshop software? I mirrored it, flipped it over once. It's like, I got instantly goosebumps. It was something like, oh my God, what have I just done? You know? it was this kind of eureka moment, and I thought like, oh my god, what happens if I flip it again? Flip both pictures and flip them over, so I had suddenly a mirror image 4 times mirrored of that one abstract photograph. And suddenly I realized, my god, this is something completely different. I've never seen it before. No, I know other people doing similar things, inspired by similar other things. But this is something I for myself consider as discovered it for myself. I didn't study it, I didn't copy it. It was something like truly to me inspiringly original. And I was really, really proud of that. And I was proud of the fact that I've discovered that, but also really glad that it changed the way of taking photographs for quite a while. I stopped taking photos of people. Kaleidoscopes is something I started doing about 2 years ago, I would say. It was a time when I stopped being in university. I was at the time in university. It was after I finished university, and I was looking for new things to do, and I just got myself a digital camera, digital SLR, which for the first time ever freed myself from having to pay for photography. I took photos and I could instantly say I throw it away or I keep it, and I didn't have to pay for the development, or I didn't have to pay for the printing. I had something to look at and to judge, and it was like a creative freedom hit. It was suddenly freed me up from having to think like, oh, I'm wasting that, you know, oh, it cost me so much money if I take that photo. And so I broke my own rules. I did something I've never done before. Before I was always doing humans, portraits and stuff. And then suddenly I discovered I have actually quite a graphical side in myself as a photographer as well, because I'm doing as well graphic design. So I know about what pleases the eyes, what is interesting in terms of perspective, and how to take a photo of an architecture object to make it look interesting. And when I had this SLR camera, I started like doing things different. Photography is not only about seeing things and handling a camera, it is just about understanding what you're doing and why you're doing certain things. And I think that's where inspiration comes from. Catching floating ideas, floating around here, you know. Ideas is something, I don't know how they are created. I just hope I will be able to do again something higher up, another level. I'm not sure.